My wife went nuts when my stepdaughter called me dad and said that she would divorce me in an instant if her husband were alive. So, I am taking this relationship to the grave. I've been with my wife for 10 years, married for 6. Her late husband died when their daughter was just a year old. That daughter's 13 now, and I've known her since she was 3. Here's the thing about my marriage. I've always known I'm not first in my wife's eyes. She goes to his grave every single day after work. Every day. Rain, snow, doesn't matter. Then every weekend, she takes their daughter there for an hour so she can spend time with her dad. I never made a big deal about it. I'm not the kind of guy who needs constant attention anyway. I work from home as an online tutor. So when COVID hit and schools went remote, my stepdaughter was home with me all day while her mom kept going to the office. That's when we really bonded. We built Gundam models together, stayed up late discussing Percy Jackson theories, and I'd help her with homework at the kitchen table. She got into hockey, then baseball, then quit both to focus on dance. She's incredible at it, too. So advanced for her age that she landed the lead role as the princess in her studio's Nutcracker production last December. Her mom never came to a single game, not one recital. Too busy visiting a cemetery, I guess. Yesterday was my stepdaughter's birthday. I'd been searching online for weeks and finally found this special edition box set of The Heroes of Olympus, the second series in the Percy Jackson universe. It's been out of print for years, but I tracked one down. When she opened it, she literally screamed, jumped up, hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, and said, "Thank you so much, Dad." I didn't correct her, just smiled. Because honestly, I've raised this kid for almost 7 years. I make her breakfast, help with her math homework, listen to her talk about drama with her dance friends, drive her to practice 4 times a week. If that doesn't make me her dad, I don't know what does. Her mother drilled it into her head when she was little that she could only call me by my first name or mommy's friend. Never dad, never anything close. My stepdaughter ran upstairs to start reading her new books, and that's when my wife turned on me. "You're not her dad," she hissed. "How could you ever be her dad? How dare you let her call you that?" I tried to stay calm. I'm glad she sees me as a paternal figure. You don't have any children. She cut me off. "She's mine, not yours, not your daughter." I took a breath. "I've been raising her for 7 years. I think you've earned nothing." Her voice was ice cold now. "If my husband came back from the dead right now, I would divorce you in an instant for him. Do you understand that? In an instant." That hurt, but she wasn't done. "Don't act so high and mighty because you help my daughter with homework sometimes or build stupid plastic figurines together. No matter how many bedtime stories you read her, you are not and will never be her father. We've been sleeping in separate rooms since then. It's been 3 days. Last night I went up to my stepdaughter's room to apologize for all the shouting. She was lying in bed, still reading her new books. "Is this my fault?" she asked quietly. "No," I said immediately. "Never. Your mom is just insecure because we get along so well. But this is not, and will never be your fault." I hope she believes me. I've been thinking a lot about everything. About the last 10 years. About what my wife said. About how I'll always be second place to a ghost. And yesterday, I made a decision. I called a lawyer. That weekend, my wife took our stepdaughter to the cemetery like always. But this time, I followed them from a distance. I watched them stand at the grave for a while. Then something strange happened. Another man approached them, older, maybe in his 50s. My stepdaughter ran to him and hugged him. Not a polite hug, a real one, like she knew him well. My wife looked around nervously. Then they all walked to a different section of the cemetery, to a completely different grave. I moved closer to see the name on the headstone they'd been visiting the whole time. It wasn't her husband's name. I stood there for a solid minute, just staring at the gravestone. The name etched into the granite was Robert J. Phillips, 1945 to 2018. Not my wife's husband. Not the man whose death certificate I'd seen framed in our bedroom. Not the father my stepdaughter was supposedly mourning every single weekend for the last 10 years. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the headstone. Then I took pictures of my wife, my stepdaughter, and this mystery man standing together. They looked comfortable. Too comfortable. Like this wasn't the first time they'd done this. I stayed hidden behind a large oak tree, watching them talk. The older man had his hand on my stepdaughter's shoulder, and she was smiling up at him in a way I'd seen 1,000 times before. It was the same look she gave me when I helped her with her science project or when we stayed up past bedtime watching movies. Adoration. Trust. Love. My wife was standing close to him, closer than you'd stand to a stranger. She touched his arm when she talked, laughed at something he said. I felt sick. They stayed there for maybe 20 minutes before walking back toward the parking lot. I waited until they drove away, then I walked over to the grave they'd actually been visiting. The headstone read, James Mitchell Thornton, 1972 to 2012. I did the math in my head. He would have been 40 when he died, the right age to be my wife's husband. This had to be him, the real grave. But why lie about which one? I drove home in a daze, my mind racing through every cemetery visit, every weekend trip, every time my wife insisted on going alone or taking just our stepdaughter. How long had this been going on? Who was the older man? And why had they been standing at Robert Phillips's grave first? When I got home, my wife and stepdaughter were already there. My wife was in the kitchen making dinner like nothing had happened. My stepdaughter was upstairs in her room. I wanted to confront them right then, demand answers, but something stopped me. If I showed my hand too early, I might never get the whole truth. So instead, I went to my office, closed the door, and started searching. First, I looked up Robert J. Phillips. It took me about an hour of digging through public records, but I found him. He wasn't dead. Robert J. Phillips was very much alive, living in an apartment complex about 15 miles from our house. According to his social media, which wasn't private because apparently the man had no concept of digital security, he worked as a contractor and posted photos of job sites, his truck, and occasionally, himself at local bars. There were no photos of a wife or kids, no mentions of a family. Just a middle-aged guy living a completely normal life. My stomach dropped. If Robert Phillips was alive, then whose grave were they visiting? And why would my wife take our stepdaughter to a living man's fake grave every week? Unless, the thought hit me like a truck, unless Robert Phillips was pretending to be dead. But why? And who was he? I kept digging. I found old news articles, obituaries, anything that might connect him to my wife, and then I found it. A newspaper article from 2012 about a tragic car accident that killed James Mitchell Thornton. But what made my blood run cold was the next line. Thornton is survived by his wife, Jennifer, and their 1-year-old daughter. Jennifer, my wife's name. So James Thornton was definitely her first husband. But the article also mentioned another person in the car, a passenger who was critically injured but survived. The name wasn't listed, just that they'd been taken to the hospital. I spent the rest of the night searching for any connection between James Thornton and Robert Phillips. Bank records, property deeds, anything. I couldn't find a direct link, but I did find something interesting. A few months after James Thornton's death, there was a large insurance payout to my wife, over $300,000, life insurance. And around the same time, Robert Phillips suddenly had enough money to buy his apartment outright. No mortgage, just a cash purchase. The pieces were starting to come together, but I needed more. I needed proof. So the next morning, I told my wife I had to meet a client across town. Instead, I drove to Robert Phillips's apartment. I parked across the street and waited, and waited. 3 hours later, he finally came out. And I nearly dropped my coffee when I saw him up close. He looked different from the photos I'd seen online. Older, more weathered, but there was something familiar about him. Something in the way he walked, the shape of his face. And then it hit me. He looked like my stepdaughter. Same nose, same chin, same eyes. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. This man, Robert Phillips, was my wife's first husband. James Thornton hadn't died in that car accident. He'd faked his death, changed his name, and had been living 15 miles away this entire time. And my wife knew. She'd been in on it. She'd collected the insurance money, probably split it with him, and had been secretly meeting him for over a decade. I sat there in my car trying to process what this meant. Every cemetery visit, every time she said she was going to visit James, she'd been visiting him all right, just not his grave. And my stepdaughter, sweet, innocent kid who I'd raised for 7 years, she knew too. She had to. That hug I saw yesterday wasn't the hug of a child meeting a stranger. That was a daughter greeting her father. A father she'd been told was dead but clearly knew was alive. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How long had they been lying to me? Since the beginning? Had my entire marriage been built on fraud? I thought about all the times my wife had insisted we keep our finances separate. How she'd always been weird about me seeing certain documents. How she'd freaked out when I suggested we get a joint safety deposit box. It all made sense now. She wasn't protecting memories of her dead husband. She was protecting evidence of insurance fraud. I needed to talk to someone. I couldn't just sit on this information. So I called the one person I trusted more than anyone. My brother. He's a paralegal, works at a law firm downtown. If anyone would know what to do, it'd be him. I drove to his office, and when I walked in, he took one look at my face and said, "Dude, you look like you've seen a ghost." I almost laughed. "Worse," I said. "I've seen a dead man walking." I told him everything. The cemetery visits, the wrong grave, Robert Phillips, the insurance payout. He listened without interrupting, his expression getting darker with every detail. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and let out a low whistle. "Man, that's fraud. Like, serious fraud. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars and over a decade of deception. You need to document everything." He pulled out a notepad and started making a list. Photos, financial records, witness statements if you can get them. Build a case before you do anything else. "A case for what?" I asked. "Divorce? Criminal charges?" He shrugged. "Both, maybe. Depends on what you want. But if you go to her now, she'll just deny everything and hide the evidence. You need to be smart about this. So that's what I did. I became a detective in my own marriage. I started going through old financial statements, looking for irregularities, and I found them. Lots of them. Small cash withdrawals, never more than a few $100s at a time, but consistent. Every month for the last 10 years. Always around the same dates. Always from our joint account. I checked our credit card statements. There were charges to restaurants I'd never been to, gas stations in parts of town I never visited, and then I found something that made my stomach turn. Charges to a dance studio I didn't recognize. Not the one where my stepdaughter took classes, a different one. I looked up the address. It was 2 miles from Robert Phillips' apartment. I drove there the next day. It was a small studio, the kind that offers private lessons. I parked outside and waited, and sure enough, 2 hours later, my stepdaughter walked out with Robert Phillips. They were laughing about something, and he had his arm around her shoulders. They got into his truck and drove away. I followed them, keeping a safe distance. They went to a diner, had lunch together. I watched through the window as they talked and joked. At one point, she showed him something on her phone and he smiled, ruffled her hair. It was such a normal father-daughter moment, except I was supposed to be her father, or at least I thought I was. But apparently her real father had been alive and well this whole time, coaching her at a secret dance studio, taking her to lunch, being the dad I thought I was being, except he was doing it in the shadows, hidden from everyone who might ask questions. I felt betrayed in a way I didn't even know was possible, not just by my wife, but by my stepdaughter too. This kid I'd loved, raised, protected. She'd been lying to me for years, looking me in the eye every day, and pretending her father was dead when she knew he wasn't. I thought about all the times I'd comforted her after cemetery visits, all the times I'd listened to her talk about missing her dad, all the times she'd cried on my shoulder about not having a father. It had all been an act, and I'd fallen for it completely. I needed to confront someone, but I knew it couldn't be my wife or stepdaughter. Not yet. So I drove back to Robert Phillips' apartment and waited for him to come home. When he pulled up in his truck, I got out of my car and walked right up to him. "We need to talk," I said. He looked at me, confused for a second. Then recognition dawned in his eyes. "You're Jennifer's husband." "Yeah," I said. "And you're supposed to be dead." The color drained from his face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Cut the crap," I said. "I know who you are. James Thornton. You faked your death, collected the insurance money, and have been hiding out here for 12 years. I have photos, financial records, everything." He looked around nervously, like he was thinking about running. But instead, he sighed and said, "Look, man, it's not what you think." "Really?" I said. "Because I think you and my wife committed insurance fraud and have been lying to me for a decade. What am I missing?" He rubbed his face, looking exhausted. "Can we talk inside? I don't want to do this out here." Against my better judgment, I followed him up to his apartment. It was small, sparsely furnished. The place looked like someone who was trying not to leave too much of a footprint. He offered me a beer. I declined. "Talk," I said. He sat down on his couch and stared at the floor. "The accident was real," he started. "I was in the car with James. We were best friends, had been since high school. He died instantly. I was in the hospital for months, and when I got out, I was broke. Medical bills, no job, no family. Jennifer and I got to talking, and we came up with this plan. To fake your death," I said flatly. He nodded. "She'd get the insurance money, we'd split it, and I'd disappear. Start over somewhere else. It was supposed to be temporary, just until I got back on my feet. But then time passed, and it got harder to come clean. And I wanted to be in my daughter's life, you know? So we worked out this arrangement." "What arrangement?" I asked, even though I already knew. "I'd see her on weekends. Jennifer would bring her to the cemetery, pretend she was visiting James's grave, but really she was bringing her to see me. And after a while, I started coaching her at the dance studio, going to her performances through the back door. Jennifer made sure no one ever saw us together in public. I felt like I was going to be sick. So my entire marriage has been a lie." He looked up at me, and I saw genuine remorse in his eyes. "I'm sorry, man. I really am. But Jennifer loves you. She does. This was just about me and my daughter. It wasn't supposed to hurt you." "Not supposed to hurt me?" I said, my voice rising. "You've been living off money that was supposed to go to a widow and her child. You've been sneaking around with my stepdaughter, making me think I was her only father figure when you've been there the whole time. And my wife has been lying to me every single day for 10 years. How is that not supposed to hurt me?" He didn't have an answer for that. I stood up. "I'm going to the insurance company. I'm going to tell them everything. You and my wife are going to pay back every penny, plus interest, plus whatever penalties they charge. And then, I'm divorcing her." "Wait," he said, standing up. "Please, don't do this. Think about my daughter. She'll lose everything." "Your daughter?" I said. "She's not my daughter, remember? You made sure of that. And honestly, right now, I don't care what happens to her. She knew about this. She's been lying to me too." I walked toward the door, but he grabbed my arm. "Please, I'm begging you. Don't do this. I'll give you money, whatever you want. Just don't go to the insurance company." I yanked my arm free. You don't have enough money to make this go away, and I walked out. I sat in my car for a long time, just trying to calm down. My hands were shaking, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I'd been living a lie for 10 years. Everything I thought I knew about my wife, my marriage, my family, it was all fake, built on fraud and deception. And the worst part was, I'd actually loved them. I'd loved my wife, even knowing I was second place to her dead husband. I'd loved my stepdaughter like she was my own, and they'd both been using me this whole time. I drove home and went straight to my office. I pulled out my laptop and started compiling everything I'd found. Photos of Robert Phillips, financial records showing the insurance payout and the subsequent cash withdrawals, records of the dance studio charges, everything. I organized it all into a folder and made multiple backup copies. Then I started looking up the insurance company that had paid out my wife's claim. It was a large national company with offices downtown. I found their fraud hotline number and saved it in my phone. But before I called, I needed to do one more thing. I needed to talk to my stepdaughter, because as hurt and angry as I was, there was a part of me that still cared about her. A part that needed to understand how she could look me in the eye every day and lie. So I waited until my wife went to bed, then I knocked on my stepdaughter's door. "Can we talk?" I asked. She looked up from her book, surprised. "Sure, what's up?" I sat down on the edge of her bed. "I need you to be honest with me, completely honest. Can you do that?" She nodded, but I could see the wariness in her eyes. "I know about your dad," I said. The color drained from her face. "What?" "I know he's alive. I know you've been seeing him. I know everything." She started to cry. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Mom said I couldn't tell you. She said if I told anyone, they'd take me away and I'd never see either of you again. And then Dad said if I told, Mom would keep me from dance. I didn't know what to do." "How long have you known?" I asked. She wiped her eyes. "Since I was 8. Dad started showing up at the cemetery and Mom told me it was our secret, that he was alive but no one could know. She said bad people were after him and if anyone found out they'd hurt him. I believed her. I was just a kid, 8 years old. She'd been carrying this secret since she was 8 years old. "And the dance studio?" I asked. She nodded miserably. "He's been coaching me there for 3 years. He comes to all my performances just through the back door so no one sees. Mom arranges it all." "Did you want to call me Dad?" I asked. It was the question that had been eating at me since this all started. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, you've been more of a dad to me than he ever was. He's nice and everything, but you're the one who's always there. You make my breakfast, help with my homework, drive me to practice. You're the one who actually shows up. But Mom said I couldn't call you that. She said it would be disrespectful to my real dad." I felt something break inside me. This kid, who I'd loved and raised for 7 years, she'd actually wanted me to be her dad. But my wife had poisoned that too. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I'm so sorry I lied to you. I didn't want to. I just didn't know what else to do. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her it was okay. But I couldn't, because it wasn't okay. She'd still lied. She'd still looked me in the eye every day and pretended her father was dead. Even if she'd been threatened or manipulated, she'd still made that choice. "I need you to do something for me," I said. "What?" "I need you to tell me everything. Every time you've seen your dad, every lie your mom told you to say, everything. And I need you to let me record it." She looked scared. "Will I get in trouble?" "Probably," I said honestly. "But it's the right thing to do, and it's the only way to make this right." She thought about it for a long time. Then she nodded. "Okay." I pulled out my phone and hit record. And for the next hour, my stepdaughter told me everything. How her mom had coached her on what to say about the cemetery visits. How her dad had been coaching her secretly at the dance studio, showing up to her performances through back doors. How they'd threatened to keep her from dance if she ever told the truth. By the time she finished, we were both crying. I stopped the recording and saved it to my cloud storage. Then I looked at her and said, "I'm moving out, and I'm going to make sure your mom and dad pay for what they did. I don't know what's going to happen to you, but I want you to know that I did love you. I do love you. This isn't your fault, even though it feels like it is." She threw her arms around me. "Please don't leave. Please. I'll do anything. I'll tell Mom I want to live with you. Please don't go." But I couldn't stay. I couldn't look at my wife every day knowing what she'd done. And as much as I cared about my stepdaughter, she wasn't legally mine. I had no rights to her, no claim. And even if I did, I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. The next morning, I got up early and drove to the insurance company's local office. I brought printed copies of everything I'd found. Photos, financial records, the recording of my stepdaughter's confession, all of it. I asked to speak to someone in their fraud investigation department, and after about an hour of waiting, they sent out an investigator. His name was Tom, and he looked like he'd seen every kind of scam there was. I laid everything out for him. He listened, taking notes, asking clarifying questions. When I finished, he sat back and whistled. "This is substantial," he said. "If what you're saying is true, we're talking about a major fraud case. Over $300,000 plus interest. That's serious jail time for both of them." "Good," I said. "How long will an investigation take?" "Depends," he said. "Could be a few weeks, could be a few months. We'll need to verify everything you've given us, interview witnesses, check financial records, but based on what I'm seeing here, I'd say you've got a pretty solid case. We'll be in touch." I thanked him and left. Then I drove straight to my brother's law office. "I need to file for divorce," I said. "Today," he nodded. "I've already started the paperwork. We just need your signature." I signed everything, and he filed it that afternoon. Then I went home and started packing. My wife was at work, my stepdaughter was at school. I had the house to myself. I packed up all my clothes, my computer, my personal belongings, everything that was mine and only mine. I left behind anything we'd bought together, anything that could be considered joint property. I wanted a clean break. No arguments about who owned what. Then I went to our bank and withdrew half of what was in our joint account. I'd checked with my brother, and legally, I was entitled to half. I transferred it to my own personal account and closed the joint one. Then I did something I'd been planning since my meeting with the insurance investigator. I went through our files and found records of every deposit my wife had made to our joint account over the last 10 years. I matched them up with my own pay stubs and tax returns, and what I found was damning. The money she'd been contributing to our household was almost exactly half of what she'd gotten from the insurance payout, adjusted for interest. She'd been living off fraud money this entire time, money that was supposed to support her and her daughter after a tragic death. Instead, she'd been using it to fund a secret life with her not actually dead husband. I documented everything, added it to my growing file of evidence, and sent copies to my lawyer and to Tom at the insurance company. Then I loaded up my car with my stuff and drove to a hotel. I checked in, set up my laptop, and got ready for the fallout I knew was coming. It didn't take long. My wife called me around 6 that evening, panicked. "Where are you? I came home and half your stuff is gone." "I left," I said calmly. "What do you mean you left? Why?" "I know everything, Jennifer. I know about Robert. I know about the insurance fraud. I know about the secret dance studio and the cemetery visits. I know all of it." There was a long silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "How did you find out? Does it matter?" I said, "I know. And I've already been to the insurance company. They're investigating, and I've filed for divorce." "You can't do this," she said, her voice rising. "You don't understand. It wasn't supposed to be like this. We needed that money. We were desperate." "You committed fraud," I said. "You lied to me for 10 years. You let me raise your daughter thinking I was helping a widow and her fatherless child when really you were just using me as cover for your crime. So yeah, I can do this. And I am." "What about our daughter?" she said. "She's not my daughter," I said. "You made that very clear. And honestly, I don't care what happens to her anymore. She's your problem now, yours and Robert's." "Please," she said, and I could hear her crying. "Please don't do this. I'll pay back the money. We'll make it right. Just don't turn us in." "Too late," I said. "I already did," and I hung up. Over the next few days, things escalated fast. The insurance company launched a full investigation and froze my wife's bank accounts pending the outcome. She couldn't access any of her money. She called me multiple times, begging me to talk to the investigators, to tell them it was all a mistake. I ignored her calls. Then Robert called me. I didn't recognize the number at first, but when I answered, I heard his voice. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't," I said. "Please, I'm begging you. We can work something out. I have money. I can pay you." "How much?" I asked. Not because I was interested, but because I was curious. $50,000, he said. "Cash. Right now. Just tell the insurance company you made a mistake, that you were confused or angry or whatever. Please." "You don't get it," I said. "This isn't about money. This is about the fact that you and my wife destroyed my entire life with your lies. You think $50,000 makes up for that?" $100,000, he said desperately. "I can get $100,000 by tomorrow. Just please, don't do this. Think about what this will do to my daughter." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Your daughter has been lying to me for 5 years. She knew you were alive and never told me. She called you dad while pretending to mourn you. So no, I'm not thinking about your daughter. I'm thinking about the fact that I wasted 10 years of my life on a woman who would divorce me in an instant if you came back from the dead. Well, guess what? You are back from the dead, so she can have you." And I hung up on him too. A week later, my wife showed up at my hotel. I don't know how she found me, but she was standing in the parking lot when I came back from a grocery run. She looked terrible, like she hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk," she said. "No, we don't," I said, walking past her. She followed me. "Please, just hear me out." "I've heard enough," I said, unlocking my hotel room door. She pushed past me into the room. "You don't understand what it was like. After the accident, I had nothing. Medical bills, funeral costs, a baby to raise. I was drowning. And Robert, he was James's best friend. He was there for us. And when he suggested the plan, it seemed like the only way out. So you committed fraud," I said. "For money, for survival," she shot back. "I was 23 years old with a dead husband and a baby. What was I supposed to do? Get a job, I said. Ask your family for help. Do literally anything other than fake a death and commit insurance fraud. You had options. You chose crime. It was supposed to be temporary, she said, just until I got back on my feet. But then I met you, and I thought maybe I could have a normal life again, a real marriage, a real family. But you couldn't, I said, because you were still seeing Robert, still lying about the cemetery visits, still funneling money to him. He's my daughter's father, she said. What was I supposed to do? Cut him out of her life completely? Yes, I said. That's exactly what you were supposed to do, because he was supposed to be dead. That was the whole point of your plan, wasn't it? But instead, you kept him around, kept the lie going, and brought me into it without telling me. You used me, she started crying. I didn't mean to hurt you. I really didn't. I do love you. I couldn't let go of him. He's the father of my child, and she needed him. She had me, I said. I was right there. I was her father in every way that mattered, but you wouldn't let me be. You kept telling her she couldn't call me dad, that I wasn't her real father, because you were saving that role for a dead man, a man who wasn't even actually dead. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. But please, don't destroy our family over this. We can fix it. I'll pay back the insurance money. Robert will turn himself in if he has to. Just please, don't take this away from us. I looked at her, this woman I'd loved for 10 years, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. There's nothing to take away, I said. There never was a family, just a fraud scheme with me as the unwitting accomplice. Now get out. She opened her mouth to argue, but I pointed to the door. Get out. She left, still crying. The next week, I got a call from Tom at the insurance company. We've completed our preliminary investigation, he said, and we have enough evidence to move forward with criminal charges. We're going to be filing to reclaim the full death benefit, plus interest and penalties. That's over $500,000. We're also recommending the DA file fraud charges against both your wife and Robert Phillips. Good, I said. How long until this goes to trial? Could be months, he said. These things take time, but we'll keep you updated. I thanked him and hung up. A few days later, my wife's assets started getting seized. The house we'd lived in for 6 years, the car she drove, her bank accounts, everything. She called me screaming. They're taking everything. They're taking my home. How am I supposed to live? How is my daughter supposed to live? Should have thought of that before you committed fraud, I said. You did this to yourself. You're destroying us, she cried. You're taking everything away from us. No, I said. You destroyed yourself. I just told the truth. That's all I did. I told the truth about what you did, and now you're facing the consequences. She hung up on me. A few days later, I heard from my brother that she'd been forced to sell the house. The proceeds went directly to the insurance company as part of the repayment. She and my stepdaughter moved in with her mother, my former mother-in-law, who I'd actually always liked. I felt a little bad about that, knowing she was being dragged into this mess, but not bad enough to stop. Then Robert disappeared, just vanished, left his apartment, quit his job, and went underground. The insurance company filed a police report, and there was a warrant out for his arrest, but he was gone. Probably figured he could run again, start over somewhere else with a new name. But this time, he didn't have my wife's insurance money to fund his new life. He was on his own, and honestly, I hoped they caught him. I hoped he spent years in prison for what he'd done. 3 months after I'd first gone to the insurance company, I was sitting in my new apartment, a small one-bedroom place across town, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Hey, it was my stepdaughter. I'm not supposed to be calling you, but I needed to talk to you. How did you get this number? I asked. I found it in Mom's phone, she said. Look, I know you're mad at us. I know you hate us, but I need to tell you something. What? I said, my voice cold. CPS came to Grandma's house yesterday, she said. They took me away. They said Mom's not fit to care for me because of the fraud charges. They said she created an unstable environment. I'm in foster care now. I felt my stomach drop. I hadn't expected that. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Whatever anger I had toward her, she was still just a kid. It's not your fault, she said quietly. Mom's been calling me, screaming that it's all your fault, that you told CPS about everything and that's why they took me. But I know that's not true. You told the insurance company. CPS probably found out on their own. Probably, I said. Actually, she said, I think I know who told them. Who? Mom, she called them herself, trying to get sympathy or something, trying to make it look like you were destroying our family, but it backfired. They investigated and decided I couldn't stay with her. I sat there in silence, processing this. My wife had called CPS on herself, trying to make me look bad, and ended up losing custody of her daughter. Where's your dad? I asked. Robert, I mean. I don't know, she said. He's gone. Disappeared. Mom's been trying to reach him, but his phone's disconnected. I think he abandoned us. I'm sorry, I said again. Don't be, she said. This is all our fault. We lied to you for years. We used you. I get why you did what you did. I just wanted you to know that I don't blame you. And I wanted to say thank you for everything you did for me over the years, for being my dad when I needed one. I felt tears forming in my eyes, but I blinked them away. You're welcome, I said. Take care of yourself, okay? Okay, she said. Bye, and she hung up. A few days later, I got a notification on my phone. My stepdaughter had posted something on social media and tagged me in it. I clicked on it. It was a photo of the Percy Jackson box set I'd given her for her birthday, the one that had started this whole mess. The caption read, "Thanks for everything, Dad." I stared at that post for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to tell her I still cared about her, that I hoped she was okay, but I knew I couldn't. She wasn't my daughter. She'd never been my daughter, and keeping any kind of connection to her meant keeping a connection to my ex-wife, to the fraud, to all the lies. So I deleted the tag. Then I blocked her account, and I closed that chapter of my life completely. Some people don't deserve closure, and some families aren't worth fighting for. Make sure to click on the screen to watch other stories.